The art of flow.
Welcome to The Art of Flow, a podcast that explores connecting with your body, mind, and soul via movement arts and creative exploration. Through conversations with movement artists, circus performers, flow artists, and fire dancers. My name is Morgan Dalgano, and I'm the creator and host of the podcast, a flow arts enthusiast and a life coach. Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Flow. Today we'll be talking with Marie Hercher, who is going to be joining us to chat about taking the stage. Marie has recently been in an awesome production of the Nutcracker that's completely devoted to exploring this familiar story, but through a flow arts version. Marie Hercher is a 26-year-old flow artist and doctor of physical therapy student. She is based in San Francisco, but will be relocating back to her hometown of Los Angeles this spring to finish out her final rotation in school, as well as dive headfirst into a new set of flow art projects. Her first prop was rope dart, but she has since fallen in love with hooping, fans, and meteor dart. Marie has a profound appreciation for the capabilities of the human body and has a goal of facilitating healing by helping people understand their bodies through flow in its many forms. Welcome to the show. So, Marie, what's your flow story? How'd you first see a flow prop? How'd you pick them up?
I think it was a similar story to a lot of people. I attended a lot of music festivals just as a ticketed regular muggle. And so you see the performers on the stage and you kind of see what they're doing. And if you don't know what flow arts is, you're kind of just like, oh, cool, dancers, but they have like a thing with them. So I think that was my first experience with flow arts. I remember never looking at it for too long, really.
I so relate. That's really what happened with me. But then something changed.
Yeah. So I was sent a rope dart in the mail from one of my friends who lived in San Jose when I was living in Los Angeles. And she sent it to me, and the name escapes me actually in this moment, but she gave me the actual name for the Chinese martial arts weapon of the rope dart. And was like, this is what this is. I think you would be good with this. And she had written it in Chinese on the paper. So there was no way for me to look it up because I didn't know how to use the characters like on my keyboard. And I later found a friend who was able to do it for me, which gave me some resources. But for the first like 2 weeks that I had it, it was just me like in my driveway playing with it because I'd never really seen one before. I had never seen someone work with it. I just had the name for it. And then that was the start of my journey with rope dart.
That's so interesting because it's completely blank slate. That's such a like double gift because first she's sending you this thing and saying, hey, explore this. I think you'd be really interested in it. And then she's also not giving you more information. So you really can explore it from ground zero, completely in your own curiosity and your own play style.
Yeah. And I think that is because of that experience and the way that it made me feel to like discover things that for sure already existed. But to really like go through that journey on my own and find stuff, it felt so good. That's the approach that I took to a lot of the props that I picked up later, where I didn't really spend a lot of time like looking things up or watching tutorials. I just kind of like played with it until I got to a place where it just felt good to explore more than to like look stuff up and then try it.
When did it shift from you playing with this rope dart on your own to you knowing it's called a rope dart and connecting with other flow artists?
Yeah, so when I was able to actually look it up, I found a lot of very, very cool martial arts stuff that had a lot more involved movements than I felt like I was ready for. So I found that tagged along with it was this thing called rope dart. And so when I clicked that, I saw a lot of different styles that people had adapted from this martial arts weapon. And that's really where I found, okay, this is what a rope dart is. This is the stuff that people are doing with it. And I didn't really get involved with the community until I kind of stumbled into it. I was very lucky in that someone saw that I had it on Instagram and was like, hey, there's this thing where other people come and play with stuff. Do you want to come to it? And that was LA Burn Club. And so that's how I met almost all of the people in the flow arts community that I know.
That's so wonderful that you were already taking footage of yourself and putting it out there. And that way you kind of open the gate to others knowing that this was something as part of your life. And they were able to share the information of where you could meet other people who play with props.
Yeah. I think that because it was so brand new to me and everything was so fresh, I wasn't worried about it being polished. I wasn't worried about like it looking good. I just posted it because I was like, look at this cool thing that I found that I can do in my driveway by myself that I've never seen anyone else do. So it was really beautiful, like coming into the flow scene and not feeling like I wasn't good enough because I had nothing to compare to.
That's something interesting about flow props and prop manipulation in general, where I feel like there's this natural urge to share, which I'm not saying people don't just share dance videos. I mean, I know TikTok is exploding with that. There's a lot on Instagram, but there's kind of like there's an excitement around this is a thing that I didn't know exists and I want to share it with you, that I think is inherent with it being an object that you're playing with.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the nature of flow arts, right, and your ability to interact with an object and create a visual of any sort, and just the nature of us growing up with and into social media really lends itself to like that sharing and creates communities all on its own. Right, these things are kind of birthed out of everyone doing their individual sharing and those people kind of gathering together, which I think is really beautiful.
Speaking of sharing, at some point it went from you sharing just with friends and family and social media followers to you performing. How did that get started?
Yeah, again, I think I think a lot of my journey has been stumbling into things, and also just a lot of saying yes. And a lot of saying yes, even when I felt completely out of my depth. Um, so the first, I guess, big performing thing, or at least it felt like that to me, was when a few of us from LA Burn Club got together and recorded a video for Virtual Burning Man last year. And even though we weren't like on stage in front of people, we had the pressure of a camera and lights and everybody else needing to be on time and in time and working together. And the rush that you get from doing that and also from seeing your result is just so worth it every time. And going into that, and even going into the latest things that I've been involved with, I have gone into it and been like, I am not qualified for this, but they believe in me, so let's go. And it's worked out.
Yeah, you have to start where you don't know what you don't know. And from there you learn as you go along. And it's kind of like anytime you pick up a new prop, anytime you try and learn a new move, anytime you try and play with a new concept or a style of concepts, if you say yes to it and you try, you're going to go somewhere, you're going to hit a flow state. But if you say no, you're never going to get that opportunity. So
Exactly.
it's really cool that you guys, as a group, the LA Burn Club, got involved in the virtual show. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we Mish Moonflower was the person who kind of conceptualized it. And I laughed just because we essentially did it all in a night. We all showed up at, I think, 5 p.m. and she gave us the music and she gave everyone the chunks of time that they would be working with and said, choreograph it, come back, we're going to film it. And so that all happened, I think, in the space of like 6 hours, and we filmed it all in one shot. There was no cutting of any of it. And it was all on fire. So everything had to be perfectly timed. And it felt like such an undertaking going into it. But these things always come together somehow magically in the end.
That's such a cool way to come up with the choreography together as a collective, to approach it kind of like they have these video editing competitions or playwriting competitions where it's like you have less than 24 hours or around 24 hours to create something from scratch.
Yes.
And it reminds me of that.
Yeah, very much that.
And what have you learned about yourself from performing?
I really have learned just how to work with people more than anything else. I think that to me is the most rewarding part of all of it is you make so many friends when you're creating something together, both because of like the melding of the minds that happens when you're trying to do something creative, but also because you end up spending so much time with people and you end up having to give feedback in real time. And learning how to communicate with different people also in different situations. And sometimes you're on a time crunch, or sometimes like things just aren't working out with like props or setup, and you've got to find backups and really rely on people to come through. And it's really taught me to just like learn to work with so many different people, so many different types of personalities, and to be really flexible in situations. Because flow arts is so new, there is a huge there's a huge door that's opened and a lot of different directions that you can go with projects. And I think what's happening now with Lumia and with the Flamingos and with Burn Club is people are seeing that opening and saying like, okay, well, let's try something no one's ever done before. And I think that another thing that I've learned is just like be willing to really like dream bigger than you think you should, because the stuff that we've been able to put together is beyond, I think, anything I would have envisioned. And it really takes a team of people saying, I think we could maybe do this to make it happen.
That's a big part of why I really wanted to chat with you at this time, because you've been on my interview list for a while. Folks, she's been on my interviews for a while. But recently you got involved with a huge project, which I briefly mentioned in the intro, that flow arts version of the Nutcracker.
Yes.
And you mentioned it was through Lumia, right? The dance company.
So Lumia, I have our sweatshirt on.
Oh.
It's really cute and shiny.
Can you tell
Lumia,
us what it was like working on this stage production, and what were the challenges? What were the successes?
absolutely. So Lumia's production of the Nutcracker was the first flow arts production on stage, right? And especially of this scale. So we had almost 60 flow artists involved, of all different types, right? So we had like things that you think of like poi and hoop and rope dart, but we also had people skating. We also had a sear wheel. We also had aerialists. So we took all of these different types of flow and we smushed them into the Nutcracker. And we're still able to really tell the story and give a lot of what people expected out of the Nutcracker as far as like storytelling and characters, and really just kind of spice it up with new visual aspects and new storytelling aspects.
That is so amazing. I'm imagining in my head just this beautiful theater filled with hundreds of people watching a stage production of the Nutcracker that involves these aerial artists, these flow artists, people rollerblading in, hoop, and as I imagine this, I can even see kind of like which character would spin what.
Oh yeah, people did a wonderful job. Our choreographers are incredible. There's a lot of them. There were a lot of pieces, and we spent some time within each piece kind of coming up with the story that they wanted to tell and aligning it with what the story of the Nutcracker was saying. In the rope dart piece, for example, we like paid homage to the original like martial arts origin of rope dart. So we had the whole piece start with two people doing like classic like martial arts rope dart moves, and we blended that in to the kind of dancier style that you see with rope dart today.
That's so wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit more about what your role was in this production? Because I'm assuming you were in this rope dart piece.
Yes, so I was in this rope dart piece. Myself and Heather Tesfaye had a duet where we kind of came on stage and showed the like dancier, flowy, softer kind of side of rope dart, and create a little bit more contrast with the like martial arts sharper movements. And then I was also in the flowers piece, the finale of the show. And like both of them were so incredible, but the flowers piece had a lot of time and effort, and I think like 20 something props used, because we used UV hoops and then we ran off stage and we all grabbed LED hoops. We had an LED sun wheel. It was incredible. We also had these, like, the costuming of this whole production was also really like beautifully thought out, and people spent a lot of time. We had these leotards with UV paint on them so that they would be UV reactive in the stage lights. It was really well done, and just way more produced than I think a lot of flow arts things have been in the past, because we had the kind of space and the resources to do it. When you're out on playa and all you can really bring is like fire and lights hooked to a generator, you can't make that kind of production. But when you have a stage and curtains and lights and UV, you can do so much more.
That is so exciting. And how did Lumia Dance Company get interested in creating a production like this? Do you know a little bit of the backstory?
Yes, so Lumia was created by one of the people in the community. Her name is Sophia. She's incredible. She's a pulmonologist. She just is she's doing it all. And she created this with the intention of bringing flow arts to the stage. So it was made kind of for us and by us. And I think that's why we're able to not compromise when it comes to any of the things that we want to do with Lumia.
That is fabulous. Oh, we'll definitely have a link to what's happening with the dance company down the show notes below. So be sure to check that out. But hold up, I got more questions. You can check it out after the interview. I'm curious about how much input you had as a dancer, as one of the artists in the show, into the choreo, because you said you collaborated with choreographers.
Yes. Yeah. So we had lead choreographers for the pieces. So for example, the flowers piece with hoops was very much led by Sophia, because she was the head choreographer for the piece. But really we would come to the rehearsals and she would say like, this is a feeling I want to create in this like 45 seconds. This is an idea of what I have. Like, what do you all want to put into it? And that was really rewarding, because you got to create what you performed. You got to choose the moves that you did. And you also learned from all of the other performers, because I had to learn hoop moves for this production. There were things that we were doing that I was like, oh boy, gonna drill that in my living room later. And for the rope dart piece, Mish was the head of that. And because Heather and I had a duet, she essentially handed us the rope darts and gave us the link to the music and was like, choreograph it. So we did all of that ourselves. And we brought it back to her and we were like, oh, is this gonna be okay? And she was like, looks great, let's go. So we got to all have a really big hand in what we created. And I think this was very true for all of the pieces, where it was very much collaborative. There was a lead choreographer just for the sake, I think, of organization, but it was really up to everybody participating to make what they performed.
Congratulations on choreographing a duet. Was this your first time choreographing something of this size and nature and length?
Something that was going to be, something of this length for sure. Something that was going to be performed live in front of people, absolutely. And it, because of the person I was partnered with, Heather, it felt so easy. Especially when you have the freedom to say like, okay, let's pick things that we know and feel good for us. And And also let's challenge ourselves by putting it to music and making sure that we're perfectly in time, and all the things that make the production pretty.
Yes, yeah, like sticking with the what's already feels good in your body that you feel you have really dialed in, but then showcasing that in a particular way that it fits the mood of the show.
Yeah, because you can have, one thing that I did learn from it is you can have all the moves down, right? You can know everything perfectly. You can pick the easiest moves that you know. But the moment that you have to time it perfectly to the music, coordinate with other people, and stand on a stage in front of 2 sold out shows, it's hard. You're really glad you picked easy moves.
And what did it feel like at the show? Because the shows were just like a week or two ago. They
Mhm.
were on like the 27th or 28th of November.
Yes, yeah. So the 27th of November, we had both of our shows, and we also we recorded those, so there will be an edited version coming out,
Ooh.
probably around the time people are actually hearing this. So please go check it out on Lumia's website. It's so different, I think, when you perform for people, no matter what. But then you've got lights in your face and like other people on stage and the pressure of cameras, and you really have to trust that you know it. And once you get past that and you're out on the stage and the music starts and you're moving, it's like any other flow arts moment, right? You're able to find the flow. It's just the moment leading up to it, for me at least, was very intense.
I believe it. Yeah. Stage productions are different because of the intensity of the lights, and there's more of a divide with the audience often because like stages as a nature, unless they're like a theater in the round where they're boxed and the audience is
Right.
all around you, which would also feel very different.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a different nature than going to perform, say, at like a party or a private party event or at Burning Man
Yeah.
or even on like at flow festivals and the stages that we have. I feel like they're not a traditional theater stage.
Absolutely. I was somewhat grateful for the divide that the stage did create, because if it did become too much, I was able to just say, "You're flowing," right? And it's not like you're looking people directly in the eye because the lights are so bright. You can just pretend that you are flowing on your own in bright lights to music that you know really well. Um, and that really brought me peace when I was shaking like a leaf backstage, um, knowing that like no matter what, just pretend that you're back in your driveway doing the moves that you know really well. You're just doing it to music and you've practiced it a couple times.
Yes, that sounds like such a useful tip for people who are performers out there. Just, imagine that you are in your comfortable performance, your practice space, not performance space. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always, like for me, whenever I really feel like I'm in my flow state, it takes me back to that driveway for sure. And you can like, I can feel the like crunchy stuff on the ground. I can like hear the tree that like rustles up against the window of the house. It's very much like something that I can come back to that centers me. And I was using that a lot when I was sitting backstage.
What's your favorite part of the Nutcracker story?
I had no part in this whatsoever, but the battle scene by far. Um, if you don't want to watch the whole Nutcracker, or you think it's boring or whatever, just open it and go to what I feel like is like 35 minutes into it. I could be wrong. Just watch the battle scene. It is both hilarious and dynamic and fun and funny. The way that our friends put their characters together, and the way that the Nutcracker and our Rat King like battle it out is just so fun and so exciting. I think it's probably the most exciting part um, of the whole production. If you're just looking for action, I think that's where it is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Also, what connects you to rope dart specifically? We talked earlier about how you discovered rope dart. You were sent rope dart as a gift, but you spin other things. You spin hoop now and many other props. So why do you keep coming back to rope dart?
It's sort of a product of one of those first love things, right? The first thing that got me into flow arts, but also I just really love how dynamic that prop itself is. I know that everyone says that their prop is the most dynamic prop. Um, so heard, but I just really like the way that it has transformed from what it was as a weapon to what people are creating with it now. And for my personal style is very slow and dancey, and it really is one of the only props I feel like I can move as slowly as I want to with it. I really I know that a lot of flow artists like have such impressive speed, and in some ways I envy it, but I also know that like I personally just like to move slowly, and a rope that really lets me have those moments where you just get hang time and you can have a breath and then it comes back and you can keep going.
I love that so much. Wow. Yeah. A lot of people do talk about dynamic movement, but as soon as you start describing the fact of speed control and that it's aligned with your personal movement style, I it lends a new clarity to the term dynamic for me.
Thank you. Yeah.
How has your mind, body, and emotions been impacted by learning flow arts?
It's one of those things that for me just brings joy. Um, and I can really only do it when I'm in a joyous space. And I've heard from a lot of people that when they're really upset or angry, they're able to go like flow and it helps to center them. Um, and I don't share that sentiment. When I try to flow when I'm upset, I can't connect with the prop because I'm not connected with me, right? I'm in my emotions, and I have to do something very intentional to step out of that before I can step into space with the prop. And I think what I have gained most from it is that ability to say like, okay, like I want to enter this space of flow and I need to do X, Y, and Z and give it the proper respect before I'm able to do or enter this space. Um, I'm very intentional with my flow time whenever I go out to flow. I very much like sit down and put down my props and have a moment, take some breaths, and really give respect to something that gives so much to me.
That is so different from how I flow, and I'm about it. I'm one of those people who definitely will get angry or irritated, and I'll go outside and I'll pick up a prop and I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then transform that emotion into something else as I go. And like, we'll have them all just like lined up on the table and be like,
Yes. I'm so jealous of that ability because it sounds so cathartic. And I really have given it like I've given it a college try and just have ended up like tangled and even more frustrated and sweaty. Just
honestly, though, I respect the intentionality because it's a different space. If I'm doing a collaboration, if I'm creating choreo, if I'm creating anything that actually is not like me just having a little session for myself, but I'm practicing and I'm creating, I need to add in that time of meditation beforehand. And I've learned that over time. So the fact that you had that for your personal practice as well is something I really admire.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it took a little bit to kind of develop, but I was realizing as I was flying, I was like, why can't I do anything? And you can't be thinking about your like work stuff and also how you need to change the cat litter and all that and think that you're going to catch whatever move you're trying to do. So creating that intentional space has become really important for me.
And when you spin, how do you work through moves? Do you imagine things visually? Are you thinking about your specific body parts and their movements? What's the process like in your mind?
So I'm very much a visual learner. And I think I gain a lot from like kinesthetics, like knowing where my body is in space, but I wouldn't say that I really think about what needs to go where. As far as my body, I think about what needs to go where as far as the prop. And I think there's also two sides to thinking about this as well, I very much move around my props. I don't move them around me. So depending on where I want the prop to be or what shape I want to create, I let it go and I get there with it, as opposed to saying like, I'm putting you here. And there's no other options.
It sounds more like a partner dance. You're treating the prop as your partner and reacting and responding to its movement.
Yeah. Which I think is a lot of the reason that I spend a lot more time flowing versus choreographing things, because if the prop does something different, so will I. And that was also a challenge with learning choreography, because when my hoop would do something weird, I would just do something else, and that was not the choreo. So that was a challenge I faced learning.
Speaking of learning, I've noticed that you have some challenges available to folks online who follow you on social media regarding rope darts. And I'm curious, because I think that these challenges help people learn and delve deeper into exploring their rope dart as a prop and their style of movement. What started these?
So it really started, it's a product of my own frustrations with other tutorials. And not to come down on anyone, this is absolutely about my learning style, but because I'm a visual learner, I was super frustrated with the resources available, because I didn't want to listen to someone talk. I didn't want like steps spelled out for me. Like I could not handle it. It was too much input. I just needed to look at it a couple of times. And that was how I learned. So if you do go find those challenges in my Instagram profile, there's no words. It's just me doing the first part of the move, and then the first and second part of the move, and then the first, second, third part of the move. Because to me, breaking it down in a way that I could perceive with my eyes was much, much more important than any other type of input. So that's why I started them, to hopefully help other visual learners.
You noticed that there was a style of tutorials that you were seeing more frequency of, and it wasn't aligned with your style of learning. And so you went out there and you created basically your own codex of notes that works for you, that you shared with others.
Absolutely. Yeah, that, and it for me felt like a huge gap in the knowledge, because as much as I love learning from other people, really what I tell them is they do the move, and people have laughed so hard at me for doing this, that they'll do the move and I won't move at all, and I'll say again, and they'll do the move again, and I would say again, and they'll do the move again, and then from there I'm able to piece it together. But like if they start saying things to me like put this here and this there, I'm not gonna be able to figure it out.
And what's your approach to teaching?
Teaching, I will say I don't have a ton of experience with. A lot of the teaching I've done has been kind of a collaborative back and forth thing with people I feel like were, on their own rope dart journeys. I've watched a lot of other people teach and seen how effective the way that they deliver is. And I'm really still working on kind of developing my own style. A lot of the way that I would teach people is kind of carry over from what I'm doing in physical therapy school. So a lot of it is me like moving people's bodies for them, which I think is maybe beneficial for some people, but maybe not for others. So again, showing people how they can move their body and or moving their body for them is kind of my teaching style. But it also may not be something that everyone is actually able to learn from or is comfortable with also, because me just grabbing your arm and pulling it over here is maybe not the vibe for folks.
I can totally see how, since you're studying physical therapy and you're so hands-on with people's bodies, that would be like a natural trajectory for you to go down when teaching others, kind of like, oh, this is familiar, this is what I do with my body.
Right. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your studies as a physical therapist and how there's an intersection between this and the movement arts you do, if there is?
Yeah, I think there's a huge overlap. And again, I think there's a gap there that needs to be bridged. But I'm at UCSF. I'm getting my doctorate in physical therapy. This is my last year, so I'm almost done. And a lot of what I have learned in physical therapy school and the way that you help people care for their bodies carries over a lot into flow arts. Um, Not only in the way that you show people how to move, but also the way that you teach them and also hold space for them. Um, because I think like learning to heal yourself and also learning flow arts are vulnerable spaces for a lot of people. Um, and so for someone to come to you and say, my shoulder hurts, I need help, or to come to you and say, how do you do that overlord thing? I need help, um, are very much the same. They are opening themselves up to you and essentially saying, I think I have faith in you to be able to show me how to fix this. Um, and I also think that flow arts can be really beneficial for a lot of people, especially people in pain, because it takes you out of your body, and like into your mind, but in a way that you're still able to like kind of interact with your physicality. Because I think mindfulness is a really beautiful thing, because it takes people out of their body and out of their pain, but also we need to find a way to like soften the bridge between mind and body and get those things to interact. Because it's one thing to meditate and be all up here, but then, you know, once you open your eyes, you're still in your meat spaceship and you got to deal with it. So I think like, because a lot of flow arts can be very gentle, the way that you like choose to move with them, I'm hoping to be able to incorporate it with some of the more agreeable patients that I get in my next rotation.
I really love what you're saying about this more ease between the mind body connection. Because I'm thinking about mindfulness in the sense of like mind body scans, where you use your focus of your attention and you go from head to toe or toe to head and you scan over each of your body parts. But what mindful practice is there when it comes to dance, when it comes to everyday movement? And flow arts seems like that bridge of applying something that's more of a sit down practice or even just a stand up practice to something with more intensive movement.
Yeah, movement is really the missing piece, because you can absolutely do a body scan and they're super beneficial, but you're never moving. And I really think that people really get afraid of moving because when they do this, it hurts, so they stop doing that. And that's way worse for your body than anything else. Not moving is the worst thing you can do. So I think flow arts is one of the ways to incorporate gentle movement while still maintaining the benefits of mindfulness.
That makes sense because a lot of flow arts is like there's micro movements involved in it. Let's say a hoop, you're doing this and you're moving back and forth along the rotation of your elbow, or if you're starting to do an iso or poi, there's so many little wrist movements.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head there. I mean, those are all kind of visions that I have, because you would be surprised, you know, like if you give someone a poi to swing around that's just had a shoulder surgery, it's more than a workout for them, you know, and it's rebuilding those little muscles that have had a lot of damage.
But it'll make it so much more fun and engaging too, because I've had physical therapy and you're using like resistance bands a lot and it kind of feels like
Boring.
yeah.
Exactly. So just I think also like the aspect of like flow arts being rhythmic is also really helpful, because you know just like doing repetitions of something is really, I don't know, I can't think of a time that it's fun. So if you can take it and make it fun, because also if it's not fun, are you really ever going to do it at home?
No.
Exactly. But if I give you a pair of sock poi and tell you that you have to swing these around for 3 minutes at home every night, you're probably going to do it because it's fun.
I love it. I love it so much. I'm so excited for you to finish your studies this year and go out there in the world and start changing it. So these days, what projects are you excited about right now or coming up?
Right now we're kind of in the like breath after Lumia, which has been really rewarding, but also because it was so time and effort intensive, I think everyone is kind of like, well, what do we do next? What do we do with all this free time? Um, so things to look forward to. The Fire Mingos are a fire conclave of all women based out of LA. So they are putting together a conclave piece for Burning Man this coming year. And I think the startup for that is going to be February, March-ish. So that's on the horizon. And then if people see Lumia and they're blown away and they want more, keep your eyes out for what I think is going to be a spring piece, not 2022, but 2023.
Ooh, I'm excited
Yeah.
about both of those. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
And who or what is inspiring you right now in the flow arts world?
I think that people who are trailblazing like Sophia with creating Lumia and pulling Flora to the stage it's really been inspiring to watch, because we did it proper, and it felt very rewarding to put together something that was so professional, because I think that is one of the stigmas that comes with floor arts, where people are like, oh well, like that's not like a real thing, you don't actually do anything. But we have a company, right? It's a proper dance company that sold out 2 shows at a real theater in North Hollywood. So it was incredible to watch that come together and the way that our board worked to make it happen. Other things that have really been inspiring to me are, and I can't stop with the rope dart community, but there are so many new faces popping up with rope darts, and it's gotten really global, and it's been super fun to watch. There are some incredible people across the US, obviously, but we're seeing it in Australia, we're seeing it in Europe, and the fact that everyone has found this weird little prop that kind of came out recently onto the scene has been really inspiring.
Yeah, I feel like everyone over the past 2 years of pandemic, since it began, there's been more and more rope dart innovation coming out, and more people who spun other props in the past are picking up rope dart.
Yep, everybody has a rope dart now, which I love. Because I have spoken to people who were like, oh, the rope dart kids were the weird kids in the corner back in the day. Like, it was not cool. Because you had like one giant fireball on a 14-foot string. Like, really, you're gonna be that person that like takes up all the space. But now there's 8 of us taking up space all together, and so now the whole stage is ours, whatever.
And I love that you also mentioned that the global expansion. I know that I've been noticing a lot of stuff going on in Japan, in Russia, in South America, Holland. There's so many places in South America. I don't even know where to begin to start.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just search the hashtag on Instagram, people are all over the place. And the more people, the more innovation, and that's why it's so encouraging, and why we want to spread flow arts, but rope dart in particular. Like, if you do what my friend did to me and just send one to someone and tell them nothing, who knows what they will make. So I think we just have to get it in the hands of as many people as possible, because someone is going to create something amazing.
Speaking of spreading and sharing, making things accessible, in your opinion, what can we do, or perhaps are you currently doing, to support equity and accessibility and diversity within the flow arts community?
Yes. So I think this is amazing, because I'm actually presenting at a physical therapy conference kind of on this in February. And as I was doing this research, I kept being like, how can I connect this to flow arts, or what can be done? And I think my research is about belonging, and how a sense of belonging is really important to learning in general. And defining belonging is hard, but you, like, when you say that word, we all get a feeling. And I think creating spaces where people feel like they belong is the most important thing. Um, and it can be really difficult, right? When you come into spaces where everybody knows each other and you're a new kid and what's going on here. It's hard to learn. It's hard to feel safe doing your thing. And I think the easiest thing that each person can do is just be like, reach out, right, and be welcoming and find an individual. Because if you're a welcoming group, yeah, that's one thing, but it may be really hard for one person to burst out of their shell and come into your group. But if you're a singular person and you say, hey, how are you? How you doing? That can really open those spaces up. And for people of color who are already in the flow arts, please, please, please find other people of color and talk to them. Because that is the thing that contributes to belonging the most, is having a peer. Like someone who looks like you or has had similar experiences come to you and say like, hey, I'm here. And that creates a sense of safety, right? Because if this person that you identify with feels safe in this space, you can also feel safe in this space. So I think if you're a person of color in the flow arts and you see someone who looks like you, who you've never seen before, just go up to them. I don't think they're going to be offended. I don't think they're going to mind. If you just go over and are friendly. It may or may not be about the fact that you're also, you know, a person of color. It might just be nice to have a person come up to them.
I love this thought so much. First of all, about reaching out intentionally to anyone you see that is maybe showing interest in flow arts, is showing up to a space where flow arts is happening, someone who is spinning alone in the park, but you're nearby with other people who also spin, and inviting them in, because you hit it on the belonging community is one of the ways in which we create safety, and we also work through changing our behaviors and changing the way that we learn and that we heal. And so, you know, the focus on accessibility and inclusion really just coming from the concept of community, I think, is captured in that word.
Absolutely. Because, you know, unfortunately, accessibility and inclusion isn't necessarily birthed out of inclusive spaces. It's birthed out of inclusive people. Because you know, it can sound as friendly as ever on its Facebook page, but if you go there and no one talks to you, that is a reflection, right? And that tells you that you shouldn't be there. So I think just being willing to you know, step into like someone's space and say like, hey, you know, if you're willing, I'm here for you, makes it so much more comfortable and so much less scary. Because that's what someone did for me. I showed up to LA Burn Club and knew one person, and thank goodness I knew him, because that one person led me around and I met all of these people. And because, you know, he spoke to me and made me feel like I was safe there, I was much more open to, you know, shaking people's hands and seeing what their prop was. And I came back. And I think that's really telling.
Yeah, that's what makes the difference. The words that really stand on my mind is, I had one person say to me, oh, you're one of us. Like they just met me that night and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
You're one of us. Come to
Yeah.
this and this event and this other event. Here, I'll add you to the Facebook groups.
Yeah. We have a little like running joke chant that when we get a new person to like light a prop for the first time, we go, one of us, one of us.
That's so cute.
It's really ridiculous.
So what are your other, perhaps lesser known passions and hobbies?
So the thing that I was doing before I got into flow arts, I run and I teach yoga. I actually, now that Lumia is over, I am currently crash training for a 20-mile trail race. It's So right now it's not looking good, but we're going to turn it all around. It's not till after the new year, so I have a little bit of time. But that's one of the things that I have really like held near and dear to my heart, even through learning flow arts and getting very involved into other things. But as you notice, like the things that I was doing before are still flow, right? Like I'm a long distance runner. That's flow. That's all flow. And same thing with yoga. It's all flow. It's all finding a flow state and being intentional and entering those spaces. It's just challenging your body differently.
Yeah, working different muscles, having different activities as your entryway points into the same state of mind, and maybe different nuances of that state of mind as well. Because like the flow you get from reading a good book and being so immersed in like a project that uses your mind power, your capacity, versus the flow that you get into from body movements and sort of setting the mind aside and being so much in your physicality, such as in like skateboarding or rock climbing or flow arts.
That's such an excellent point, because I think also like all different kinds of flow will have a slightly different headspace to them. Like there's different flavors of flow. And I think maybe that's one of the things that keeps pulling you back to rope dart, is that like it just tastes a little different than all the other props. And it feels good like in its own way compared to other things.
A wonderful icebreaker question would be, what's your flow flavor of the week?
What is your flow flavor of the week? I would say right now, I'm feeling like a chocolate peanut butter.
Ooh, yeah.
When am I not feeling like that though, you know?
Always a classic, awesome combination. I think I'm like a Jolly Rancher this week.
Ooh.
And
what flavor Jolly Rancher though?
Watermelon.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah. I like it.
So I got the big and tough questions right for the end. This is a question I ask every single guest on the show, and it doesn't have to be arts related or movement related. We're thinking big vision here. What is your ideal world?
My nightmare answer: free healthcare. So I'm just so deep in the like medical woosah. Free healthcare, man. But I mean, I think we come down too hard on the society that we've created because, you know, of its inherent flaws. But, you know, the things that I would change are, you know, free healthcare, stop being racist. And I think also if we did those two things, think about how much like trickle down stuff would change that we maybe wouldn't have to shift anything else. But I like, you know, as much as we complain, like I love the world that we live in. I think it's just so close to the ideal. It's just these like really these thick splinters are the only things in the way. But yeah, like my ideal world is not so different from the one that I get to live in every day, which makes me really happy.
I hear you. Yeah. It's more like, oh, how do we shift these problems that are inherent within the systems we created, but the world itself still has beauty, and yeah, a lot of gratitude for that. Is there anything else you want to share with listeners today?
Let's see. From a physical therapist perspective, please stretch. From a flow artist perspective, I see and respect all of you out there every day. Like everything that I'm able to like consume of other people's flow arts, I'm just so grateful for. And for the community that's been built around it, the several different communities that have been built around it. And I think like without all of y'all, things would be so different around here.
Thank you so much, Marie. I hope you have a lovely evening. And for listeners, be sure to check out those links in the show notes below, and we'll see you next time in the new year.
Thank you so much.
The Art of Flow is a free public resource for creators, teachers, and supporters of the arts who are interested in flow arts and fire dancing. It is available for mainstream distribution on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and at theartofflowpodcast.com. If you believe in a show that provides inspiration for artists and conversations on the creative process, please support the podcast on Patreon to keep it going. As a supporter, you can earn early access full-length interviews, submit questions for interviewees, be mentioned in an episode, and get a behind-the-scenes look at how the podcast is made. That's The Art of Flow if you're searching for it online. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook to receive shorter clips of episodes, updates, and notifications when new episodes are released. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.